All right, so just out of curiosity, how many people have ever tried or taken skate photos or just photos in general? Yeah, most people? Okay. It's fine if you haven't, not a big deal. So what we're gonna cover today is mostly skate photos. Obviously some of these techniques can apply to other photos as well. It's not specifically one type of photography they'll be stuck in. We're gonna look at, in this lesson, lesson 1, we're gonna look at just your basic camera settings. So if this is more of like an introduction lesson in this one, and so if it's a bit basic for you, I understand. We're gonna get into more in-depth stuff after, but we're gonna start off with a video from Matt Price, if I have audio.
Important. What else do we got?
All right, so that was a little look at Matt Price. We're gonna cover shutter speeds, aperture, and composition in this lesson. Just like to get an idea of where everybody's at. Shutter speed, anybody have, you can raise your hand, you don't need to tell me the definition, I don't expect that. But shutter speed, everybody kind of know what shutter speed is or an idea? Okay, how about aperture? The depth of field, okay, cool. And then composition, obviously your framing and everything else. So, jumping in with shutter speed, usually when you're shooting natural light or even with flash, sometimes if you have fast enough flashes, you're gonna be shooting at 1/500th of a second. And that's technical jargon for literally the shutter opens and closes in 1/500th of a second. So it's very, very fast. And that's what freezes the motion of the skating. So to get that frozen motion like you see here with him on the left being completely frozen with no blur of motion anywhere, that's gonna give you that. With anything over that, sometimes you need to push it past 1/500th, but that's a good starting point in most photos. So we look at that in both of these photos, although the one on the right does have flash, so it's a little bit slower because the flash slows it down. Now, if you guys want to make fun of me, it's totally fine. All of these are my photos, and just like Matt Price is talking about, when you start off, they're not going to be good. But it's one of those things that you learn along the way. And so this was one of, just like what Matt was saying, one of the first photos I've ever taken using natural light and a fast shutter speed and learning how the blurs work. And so playing around with that shutter speed and learning how all that works together is kind of part of the experience. With the fast shutter speed, you're gonna get everything frozen in time. And usually a lot of times when you're shooting with flash, the most you can push is 1/125th, 1/60th, because the flash will fall behind. But then you can play around with stuff like slow shutter speeds. And you get these really cool blurs behind the skater. And you can do this by moving the camera and you get the blurs and the flash will freeze everything, or you can do it with shooting with the skater getting the blurs by keeping the camera steady. So this one was shot with the camera moving, and it was around 1/50th of a second, so a lot slower than that 1/500th we talked about before. And that is where you can get these kind of blurs you see up here in the background falling away, and kind of gives you a feeling of motion throughout the shot. Moving into aperture. So typically with aperture, what they call shallow depth of field is when whatever your focus point is, the background behind it falls off and the foreground in front of it falls off. So you can see that the coping in the foreground is very out of focus and the background is very out of focus. The shot has a shallow depth of field. It's not very typical in skate photography. It's actually pretty rare that you see anything with the shallow depth of field. Most shots are like f5, 6 to 9. Which means that you're letting in less light, but more depth in your photo. So composition, one of the things you want, or some of the things you want to take into context is the stance of the skater. Are they goofy or are they regular? Because you usually want them facing the camera. You don't want to shoot their back in most shots. If they are doing something like a back clip or something, you can shoot their back because they're going to be looking over their shoulder at you. But a lot of times you're going to want to shoot their front so you can see them. Like Matt said in his video, sometimes you're not going to win with the arms in front of the face. You can see in this shot, clearly that was the problem, but it does its job. You understand the like crazy rock wally that Sid was doing here. So another thing with composition is you want to include context. If you have a skater floating in the air somewhere, with no like ramp or anything else in the foreground, you're not going to know where they came from. If they're going down a set of stairs and you can't see the bottom or the top of the stairs, you don't know how many stairs there were. If they're going down a rail, if you crop it in super tight, there's not going to be much information there for everybody to understand where they went. And then also to keep in mind when you're shooting for composition, who's the photo gonna go for? Is it gonna be in a magazine, which then maybe sponsors don't matter, but if it's like an ad for here for Volcom, you're gonna probably wanna focus on the clothing, make sure there's a sticker on the board, and you're shooting that kind of stuff so you have, brand placement. So if you're on assignment for somebody, that's probably a good, concept to keep in mind where that was. So look at composition again too. We have 3 different angles of the same shot. And so we're kind of playing with like what actually fits and what you like best and what you're trying to show. So same trick, same spot, and just 3 different angles. And we kind of find what works best with different lens choices. So playing around with different things I think is always important, especially when somebody's warming up and getting ready to get a trick. It's good to figure out your composition before they're ready to land it, because you don't want to have to ask them to do that again. So playing around with composition can lead to much better photos. Like initially I thought this wide angle one would be really good, and then it looks like the ramp's going backwards. It doesn't look like it's very steep. And then this one, he's not really facing the camera, so I'm not the biggest fan of it, although it's aesthetically more pleasing. But then shooting with the longer lens on this one, it shows how steep the ramp is, where he's coming from, where he's going, and you can actually tell the trick, and then you can see how dipped his front truck is for the backsmith, which is important. So anyway, what I wanted to kind of talk about, and if I did not lose my magazine over here, was like composition and kind of some of the things that you guys think is appropriate for composition. So for instance, on a photo like this, which if you guys can't see it, let me know. But like compositionally, like what do you guys think? Was this the right way to shoot it? Would it be more appropriate to shoot it from like the back behind him so you can see where he's going? Or is this something that you guys think is pretty solid to make it in the magazine? And I will tell you that a lot of photos to make in the magazine are questionable, and probably most of you can take better ones than many that are in here, which is saying something a lot of the time. So, anybody?
I would say they showed more what's to the right, where to see where he's going.
Because you can kind of see the transition, but you can't see how rough it is. You can't necessarily see like what's going on, and then where is he going? Is he just coming out to the flat? Is there another transition over here? Like what happened? Where did he land? Did he die? No one knows.
I do think the way that his face is framed pretty well centered between the board and his body looks like it's good framing in that regard.
Yeah. So compositionally, how about this photo where we have a nice reflection, a rail? I'd say that's one of the better shots in this entire magazine, actually. Right? So you get that really cool reflection. The cloudy skies is moody. You got flash, you got him frozen, and I don't know about you, but that's a high rail, and I really don't want to be on that thing.
It's good leading lines too.
Yeah, leading lines, good. Yeah, cool.